Hello everyone. So today I'm going to show you how to sew a signature into your journal cover. So if you purchased a journal cover from our shop, if you purchased the binding kit, all of the supplies used today are available in the shop. But this is the easiest way to sew in your papers into your journal covers. Even if you made your own cover at home, you can use this step-by-step guide. So before I got started, I made my cover. This is with some vintage fabric. We still have some of these available in the storefront. I adhered it to this vintage wallpaper that has like a neutral, and it just gives the fabric a little more structure there. And then I went ahead and I rounded one of the corners because my journal is gonna be like that with a flap closure, and then I'm gonna do a snap button there. So this journal is a standard size journal, so it measures 9 inches, and I typically go about 17 inches wide so that I have the flap over. So I've picked my papers out. I'm just doing a standard cream paper, and I deckled the edges just for a little extra. So pretty simple, but you can fill your journals with any type of paper that you want, whether you are art journaling or junk journaling or writing lined, and that's one of the benefits about making your own journal. So let's go ahead and get started and talk a little bit about the supplies that you're going to need. So you're of course going to need your journal cover, the papers that you are going to use with the amount of signatures. Each one of these is called a signature, and essentially it is paper folded in half and then stacked on top of each other. So I have 3 signatures for this journal already folded and ready to go. I have a scissors. I have the string that I'm going to sew the signatures in. This is like a hemp string. I have a marker or pen or pencil to mark my hole pattern. I have an upholstery needle, typically with a larger eyelet so that I can fit my string through. I have my awl. I tend to use this weeding tool because then I can really push on it, but if you bought the kit, you have an awl in your kit as well. And then I have my handy little guide and ready to go. Also, you can have a binder clip, especially if you're doing multiple signatures. Sometimes it's nice to clip those signatures away as you move on and add more signatures in. So I have a binder clip sitting there and ready to go. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out where I want my signatures to be sewn in. And so typically what I do is I just stack my signatures on top of each other and kind of fold over the cover. And I don't want a ton of room left here. You can go a little bit over here, but I don't want a ton of room left here because when you go to close it, it's going to get all bunched up on the closure if you're using a flap type of journal. So I line that up, and then I just take that cover and move that, and then I know that this is kind of where I want it, and I just kind of center it and make sure everything looks straight. Then I'll take my guide and I will line my guide up with the signature, and that is how I'm going to create my whole pattern. So it's really important that you're using a guide and when you're doing multiple signatures, because you want your whole pattern to match on the spine and match with each one of the signatures. So I'm going to go ahead and mark a spot. Of course, my pen's not going to work. Hold, please. I'm going to mark a spot in the center, and I'm going to show you how to do a 3-hole sewn, and then I'll go there and there. So then I've got my holes for my first 3. Then I'm just going to shift this over a little bit, keeping it lined up, and mark 2 more sets of holes for the other 2 signatures. And shift it one more time. And there. So I've got my hole pattern. Then I'm going to go ahead and take my awl, and I'm going to pre-punch these holes. And I'm making sure that I make my holes big enough so that that needle can fit through, the string can fit through. And depending on which fabric you chose, Might really have to use some strength there. All right, so now I've got all of my holes punched, and I am going to do that same measuring process inside each one of my signatures. So I'm going to open my signature up to the middle. So the middle is the last page in the stack of pages. And then I'm going to hold my guide up, and in the crease, I am going to mark that same hole pattern, just like that. I'm going to pre-punch the holes right in the crease, like that. The top one is always the hardest one without poking myself. And depending on if you have thicker paper or more paper in there and it's a little bit thick and you're having a hard time getting your holes through, a trick is to find a piece of cork or something that you can lay flat, and then you can kind of push down on it. So you can always try that if you're struggling to get through the paper. Typically the amount of paper that you want is anywhere between 10 and 15 pages per signature, depending on how thick of paper you're using. So if you're using all cardstock, like thicker paper, then obviously less paper. If you're using kind of thin paper, then you can kind of get up to the 15 mark. So you just kind of have to use your judgment on when to stop, because if you make your signatures too thick, they're going to gator mouth and they're not going to want to sit flat in your journal. So keep that in mind when you're putting together your signatures. And then we're just going to do that same process with all three. And they will all match. And I'm making sure that all is going all the way through so that my needle will have enough room to get through the hole. Okay, so they are all punched and ready to go. Next thing is, let me put the cap back on this. The next thing is to get your thread, and about 20 inches or so. I probably am a little bit, I probably make my thread longer than what it needs to be, but I like to have a little bit of space in there while I'm sewing in signatures, just so I don't run out of string. So all you do is thread your needle. You don't need a knot in your thread at all. You just need a little bit of tail so that it doesn't come out of the needle eyelet. And then you're ready to go. So the first thing that you're going to grab your first signature, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to go down through the center of your signature. And I don't pull it all the way through. I pull it about there, and then I hold the tail with my thumb so that it doesn't go all the way through. Whatever you're doing into your signature, so going down through the center, you're going to do that same thing through your journal cover. So we went down through the center of our signature. We're going to go down through the center of our journal cover. We're going to go up through the top of our journal cover. And up through the top of your signature. Now we're going to go back down through the center, but something to keep in mind is you don't want your needle to catch on this original thread. If you do, it's going to get kind of bunched up and you're going to run into some issues. So I typically pull that thread tight and I put my needle in just above the original thread to avoid getting it caught on it. And same thing here. Avoid getting onto that thread going down back through the center. Then you're going to go up through the bottom of your cover and up through the bottom of your signature. All right, so you've got it all sewn. You can go ahead and lose your needle now, and then you pull all of everything kind of tight. So I'm pulling all of my strings tight. I'm checking to make sure we don't have any looseness here. I'm going to open it up, make sure that's pulled tight, just like that. And then once you've got everything organized, you've got 2 strings here. You're going to take your bottom string and you're going to go underneath this loop, just like that. Okay, so we're going underneath that. And your 2 strings are now met in the middle, and you double knot it. Depending on the type of thread or string that you're using, you can do a little dab of glue on your knot to make sure it holds. If you want to leave your strings long, you can leave them long and add beads to the bottom. If you want, you can trim them right to the knot, and in that case, definitely make sure you've got a good hold of glue on your knot so it doesn't fray. Or you can just do kind of like a little tail too. So it's totally up to you. I'm just going to do a little bit of a tail there. And then I'm going to use my binder clip and clip that out of the way. And we're going to repeat that same process for the next 2 signatures. And I will walk you through each one. I'll go a little bit faster for these ones, but repetition always kind of cements it into your mind. So we're going down to the center. I'm holding that piece of string there so it doesn't go through. We're going to go down through the center of your cover, up through the top, up through the top of your signature. We're going to go down through the center, avoiding getting caught on that string. Down through the center of your cover, avoiding that string. Up through the bottom. And up through the bottom of your signature. All right, so now we've got it strung. We can lose our needle at this point and pull it all nice and tight. Check to make sure you don't have any loops in there. Make sure it's tight on the outside. We're going to take our bottom string and we're going to go underneath here, pull it tight, and they meet in the middle. And I'm going to go ahead and double knot that. You can do a dab of glue. I'll do it a little bit later. And for this one, I am going to leave it a little bit longer because I want to add some beads to the center signature. So I'll leave that longer so that the beads can go up or down. Okay, and we're going to clip that out of the way, and we're going to do our last signature. Oh, I just lost my end. There it is. Okay, so down through the center of your signature. Also, another thing that you want to pay attention to when you're doing your signatures, sometimes when you're working with multiple signatures, they kind of get messed around on your table. Before you start sewing them in, make sure you're sewing them in the correct way. If you have patterns or writing or photos that have an orientation, you want to make sure you're sewing it in the correct way in your journal. If you oops and sew it in upside down, which I have definitely done before, you can just cut the string and re-string it. So it's not the end of the world, but obviously more work and not ideal if you can avoid it. So put this last one in. And up through the bottom. All right. And then we'll lose our needle on this last one. Okay. And then pulled it all tight. We're gonna go take your bottom string and go underneath and double knot it and trim if you would like to. And your paper is now all sewn in. So there is your spine, all nice and even. Your paper is all in there, ready to be decorated or embellished or whatever you plan to do with your journal. And then I'm using kind of a semi-soft cover journal. It's got some structure to it, but it's definitely not a hardcover journal. And so I'm going to go ahead and kind of crease where I want the journal to be creased. And for this particular journal, I am going to do a gold snap closure, and then it will be done. So that is what it looks like on the inside, the back, and the front, and then I'll add my snap. And it's just like that. So recap, binding kits are available in the shop. Vintage fabrics and upholsteries like the ones that I have done today are also available in the shop. So you can check those out. We also have a hardcover and soft cover journal making kit that comes with a more in-depth video about how to make the cover, how to sew it in, some other tips and tricks, how to do tassels and that type of thing. You can check those out as well. So those links will be in the video notes below. Thank you.